So to get started, I have my rocket. It's not fully assembled, and yours shouldn't be assembled at all, but I wanted to show you where we were putting things. A coin cell battery for testing with my 2 alligator clips attached to it, and 4 large 5mm red LEDs and 4 smaller 3mm blue LEDs. And that's all and copper tape. That's all I will need for this first part of testing. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to put our blue LEDs so that they are between these 2 fins here. And we're going to put our red LEDs so that they come out down here like it's a rocket fire coming out. So those are the 2 places we're going to put them, and that will make everything else make a lot more sense. We are only going to need this to begin with. And this, sorry. My lines have already been marked a few times, but you will want to go through and where each of these slots are, you're going to want to make a mark. You can make it pretty small because the pen will bleed, but those will be our indicators as to where we want to place our copper tape. So now I'm going to have 1 negative bus that goes from here around to the other side. This negative bus will be used by both our red and our blue LEDs. I'm going to do a positive bus up here. That will be used for my blue LEDs only. And I'm going to do another positive bus down here for my red LEDs. Okay, so I'm going to put my blue LEDs up, spreading this bus, and my red LEDs down, spanning these 2 buses. I'll start with my blue ones. So remember, the negative lead is your shorter lead. I'm bending both leads up. I'm setting them on my bus. And then I am bending the leads so that they go out from the center. I want these to go towards the outside. Actually, I'm sorry, I want these ones to go towards the inside. Like this. Because these LEDs are going to sit out further on the rocket. The red ones are going to sit out more interior. So I need to rebend these just a little bit. And I do want to make sure that this lead stays on the bottom, stays higher on the bus, so that I have room to tape down the red lead. Okay, so there we go. Okay, I'm going to tape down just the top of these 2 so that they stay in place. And then I'm going to do something similar for the red LEDs. But the red LEDs I would like to face downwards so that it looks more like rocket fire, which means I'm going to have to shape them just a little bit differently. My negative still wants to go up top to the bus, so I'm going to bend my positive out to the side and have my negative go up. And then I'm going to bend my negative so that it can lay neatly on the copper up here. I'm going to do the same for my next one. Leave the negative pointing up, bend the positive perpendicular to the left, set this up here, put a small bend in my negative so I can tape it down to the tape. Can also do a little bend there so that it makes a little bit of a dip so that it hits the wood or the copper tape nicely. What we want to make sure is that our LED doesn't go above where this fin is. And actually, I'm going to put my dip further back over here. But I've bent this just a little bit too far up. So I'm going to unbend it and bend it one more time just so it reaches a little bit better. There we go. Okay. And this one I'm going to come back and bend the lead down so that it hits flush with the wood a little bit better. There we go. So this is what the profile looks like. Okay. And then there's that bend there. So those are all set, but I still need to bend my positives so that they reach my positive bus. And I will do that now. Oops. Looks good to me. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but do you see how this bit right here sticks off the end? We're just going to fold that over to give it even more contact with the tape. We could just as easily cut it off, but there's no reason to do that. Okay. So again, I'm going to kind of bend it back and down so that it touches the tape. And then I'm going to fold it over on itself so it has more contact with the tape, and specifically so that it isn't sticking off the end. So it looks kind of silly there, but it does its job. Okay. And then we just want to make sure again that these LEDs here are below this mark that we made, so that our fin can sit nicely on top of them. And we want to make sure that they don't cross over into the center where the rest of our rocket is going to slot into place. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape these bottom bits, and then I'll come up and tape these top ones. Here you want to make sure this copper tape both touches the lead and the copper tape underneath it. And before we tape this middle bit on, we're going to do a little bit of testing too. Okay. So now we're going to do a little bit of testing just to make sure our connections are good. So our positives are down on the bottom. We're going to touch the copper on the bottom. We're going to touch the individual leads on the LEDs. I don't need to test both. They must be making a connection by touching this. But we haven't taped them down, so you may not have that connection like I do. Okay? And then we're going to test the blue LEDs. Well, looks like that one's working. But this one is... Oh, that's because I wasn't touching it. There we go. So I was still touching the copper tape, and this other blue one wasn't working, and that's simply because its lead isn't touching the copper tape. So I need to be touching the negative leads on these and the positive tape because it's the positive connection that we're testing. So now I'm going to go ahead and tape down our negative bus, and then we'll test it. And then we'll do the same thing on the back. And again, I'm just using my fingernail to really make sure that we're touching all of these leads. You could be taping these on with clear tape, but I've found that with the wooden projects that there's not enough flexibility in the wood to make sure that you get a good clean connection with just clear tape on top. I like to use copper tape on top as well. Okay, so let's test that one more time. The negative bus is in the middle, positive bus on the bottom and top. Oh, looks like we didn't get a good enough connection with this one right here still. So I'm going to go back, use my fingernail to really get that one secured. This is a bit of a complex project that is assembled after we get all of the tape on, so we really want to make sure our connections aren't finicky. We want them to be really reliable. Okay, now I'm noticing that these two leads are just a little bit close to my center. So before I go on, I'm going to make sure that my rocket fits. I'm pretty certain it will, but I'd hate to find out later that it doesn't. Yep, no worries. Okay. If you do fitting as well, you'll just want to be careful not to catch the nose of the rocket on any of your tape and rip it up, okay? So mine wants to catch right there. I just ease it over the top of it. So now I'm going to repeat that whole process on the back side. The back side is just a little bit more difficult because we've already done our front side, so we can't lay it flat anymore. You want to make sure that you're not pushing down too hard and bending up these LEDs too much. But other than that, it's the exact same thing. There we go. I'm just testing that the lights on both sides light up when I touch the leads. My connection isn't wavery here so much as it's hard for me to get a solid one for testing. Okay, and I'm going to check to make sure that the other half of the rocket still goes on. And it does. It fits on both sides. So we are done attaching our LEDs. The next thing we're going to do is take some wire and we're going to strip it and attach it. That will be much the same process, but it's a lot harder to get the LEDs on once the wire is on because it just makes a big tangled mess. So that's why we saved the wire until the end. So here I have some red wire for our red LEDs. We'd also normally use red for positive. I have some blue wire for our blue LEDs. And I have some black for our ground. So I'm going to cut off 2 feet of each color. That is an excessive amount, but I want to make sure that we have as much as we need. So I've got my red, I'm going to do my blue and my black. Okay, now we're going to take our wire and we're going to strip both ends of it. This is 22 gauge wire, so you want to use the very top of your strippers. It says 22 there. We're going to slide the wire through it. Or not slide, but rest it through it. I don't need, actually on the top end, I need quite a bit, so. Okay, and what this does is this cuts the plastic coating on the wire without cutting the wire itself, okay? So we've cut the plastic coating on the wire, and now we're gonna take the wire and we're gonna grip it really well and pull the coating off. And we have a bit of exposed wire at the end. The reason we want this plastic coating, for the red it doesn't matter so much, but for the blue, We're going to tape it down up here, and it's going to have to cross our ground here. So the plastic coating means that when it crosses our ground, we don't have to worry about it touching our ground and creating a short circuit. We're going to do the same thing for the other end so that we have it available to stick into our breadboard. Okay, we're going to repeat this process for the black and the blue. So straighten your ends a bit if they're not. Grab your clippers, put them in that top little hole there. Close them tight, grip, and pull the plastic coating off. As you pull it off, you might need to loosen your wire strippers just a little bit, because they might be gripping just a tiny bit onto the wire, okay? But you need to initially clamp down well so that you can cut all of the coating off. And you will shoot your coating everywhere, so make sure that you don't have any siblings nearby to catch it in the eye. Okay, I'm going to start with the red and work my way up to the blue. And actually that's not quite true. I'm going to do the red and the blue, the two positives on one side, and I'll do the black on the other so we have a little bit more room. So as we've learned, if we put a little bend in our wire, we get a better connection with the copper tape, and it's less likely to slide its way out. So that's what I'm going to do. Put a little bend in it. I'm going to put it towards the center, and I'm going to get some copper tape and tape this on. Okay. Now I'm going to test my connection, which gets a little bit tricky because it flies all around now, but I'll take my blue, my ground, and test it up there, and I'll take the end of my wire and test it to the positive here, and it looks like I have a good connection. Okay, and I can move it around a little bit. Don't be crazy here, but you want to move it a little bit, because you want to make sure that slight wiggling isn't going to make this connection here come undone, because that'll be very sad as you go to assemble the rest of your rocket. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same with the blue wire. Going to put a slight bend in it, or not a slight bend, a whole 90-degree bend. I'm gonna tape it down here. Okay, and I want my wires to kind of meet right here, because I'm gonna end up twisting them together so that they're more stable and don't want to peel off the tape so much. I'm gonna flip everything over. Oh, I didn't test that one. First, I'm going to test that one. Again, this blue one is our positive. So I'm going to do my ground to the ground. You might want another set of hands for this. And this to the positive. Move it around a little bit. Seems pretty stable. Okay. I'm going to flip everything over. Being careful with these wires still, because they'll be easy to peel right off. Okay. And I can't get mine to even stay down. And now we're going to do our ground. We want to make sure we do our ground on the same side as we did our positives, which means it's actually the opposite side since we flipped our rocket over. I'm going to put a bend in the end, just like before. And now I can test my negative out, holding it to the battery. I'm holding my positive up here and my negative is working fine. I could test them out by actually using all of the wire ends down at the bottom since I have everything wired up, but I can't really do that on the camera because the rocket goes flying. I'll do that once I get these twisted. Now you're going to take these and you're going to have your fingers on all the wires so that you're not twisting them out. Okay, and you're going to gently twist them together. Gently but firmly, okay? Okay, don't get too far here because then we want to go ahead and test everything. But we want to get far enough that we're not worried about flipping our connections everywhere. Okay. So let's go ahead and get out our breadboard. What I'm going to want to do is put my resistance on my positive bus and my jumper onto my negative bus. I'm going to put my red on the other side of the resistor so that it creates more resistance. I can put my blue on just the main bus line, and I'll put my ground on my ground, and now I need to plug my battery back in. Whoops. This is a lot easier if you have another set of hands. There, now I have everything plugged in. What I want to see is as I wobble it, if they turn a little bit wobbly, I want to see if both my red and my blue go out at the same time, or if just red or just blue go out, because that'll tell me what line is being. Oops, my camera battery died, but we are back. I think I have it as steady as it can be, so I'm going to go ahead and unplug it. And we are going to start assembling our rocket. So I'm going to take my second rocket piece and carefully slide it up here. I just want to make sure that I didn't rip my copper with my nose as I was getting it over there. There we go. That snaps into place. And now I'm going to grab all of my little half circle pieces and assemble those. So you should have 3 of each of these. That's because if you try and take them off, sometimes they don't come off cleanly, and we wanted to make sure that you had a second one. In the course of all of my testing and prototyping and everything, I only broke 2 of them total out of the 8 that I had. So as long as you're careful, you should be totally fine. You're going to push these on. You want to make sure that you're not pulling on this part of the rocket, but pushing from behind into that same one. If you pull on this, you could snap it in half. So you just want to grip from behind and push down, and you should hear a nice snap. It may not go in easily on your first try, and you may need to do just a little bit of sanding to get it in. That's because there's just a little bit of variance on them, and we wanted them to be tighter rather than looser. So if you absolutely cannot get it in, just do some sanding and see if that helps. There we go. Flip it over and do it again. This time I'm going to put them in order for you so you can see what they look like. Okay. Perfect. Now put that aside for a moment and assemble my base. There we go. So my base comes in 5 parts. I want to line these up, and then I have 2 identical parts and one with a slot in the middle. The slot in the middle one goes in the middle. That's where we're going to slot our rocket into. I want to try and line these up as well as I can. And then I'm going to slot them into my base. I want this sticking out this way. That way the weight of the rocket is over the base and it doesn't tip the base over. And this just requires a bit of patience. Sometimes I've had more luck getting one of these on and then getting the second one on. Sometimes I've had luck slotting it in all at once. There we go. So I want all my pieces to be level on the bottom, so they all line up neat on the top. And I'm going to slot this into the next one. There we go. And I have a nice sturdy base. I'm going to bring my rocket back. Now my rocket is going to go into my base like this. Okay? But before I do that, I'm going to finish twisting my wires. By the time we've got this all twisted up, you can see why we chose to do the wires multicolored instead of all nice and black. Because otherwise we would never know which ones were our red ones or blue ones or our ground. So now that I've got this all twisted up, I'm going to thread it through my base. I don't want to get it all the way threaded, but I want to get it started so that I'm not messing with my rocket so much once I've got it in its position. I'm not going to thread through that middle one, I'm going to thread back through the bottom one. Okay, now I'm just going to pull on this as I get my rocket up into position here. I'm slotting it in and I'm pulling it down at the same time. There we go. And then I'm pulling it back through this way. And there we go. We have a rocket ready to be plugged in. So I'm plugging it back into my breadboard. with my ground after the jumper, my red after the resistor, and my blue on the main positive line. And plugging in my batteries. And we have a rocket. Now, since you've got this plugged into your breadboard, you can add your 555 timer to it if you'd like. You can plug and unplug your red or your blue for takeoff. You can also attach this, as we've talked about, to a microbit and program your red and blue lights independently by sending signals to it. Basically, anything we've done with any of our prior projects, you can do with this one using your breadboard. So have fun and send us your pictures.